This is exciting.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here this morning. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? It's fairly grey in Leeds. How is it with you? Is it sunny somewhere in the country? I really hope it is. Right. Anyway, I know we're on a tight time schedule, so I will crack on. I'm just going to I should visually describe myself first, shouldn't I? I'm a white woman in my mid-40s with short brown bobbed hair, blue eyes, and wearing a pink and blue dress. I've got stripy wallpaper behind me and a red and yellow artwork. And as Sam said, I'm the head of learning and access for Leeds Museums and Galleries. And I will just share my screen. I'll put it back to the beginning of the presentation would help, wouldn't it? That really would help. There we go. You should be able to see a blue screen with white writing. Excellent. Thanks, Sam. Right. So a little bit of context, because that's always useful first, isn't it? Leeds Museums and Galleries. We are the largest local authority run museum service in England. We have, I wasn't expecting it to do that. There we go. We have 8 venues, and these are images of those 8 venues. Now, museums and galleries are run differently across the country. You may have heard of national museums like the British Museum, the V&A, the Science Museum. Then there's often independent museums. So around here, we've got like the Thackeray Medical Museum or Harewood House. They might be smaller. They're often run as a charity. And then you've got local authority museums like us, which are run by your councils. So your council tax, wherever you are paying, when you get to that point, wherever you're paying council tax will go into funding the museums in your area if they're local authority run. So these are our 8 venues. I'll start on the top left of the screen. We've got the Big City Museum. That's like a pop-in museum. You can pop in, do 10 minutes and pop back out again. It's got a little bit of all of our collections in it. We've got the Discovery Centre next on the top row. That's our open access store. Now we've got 1.3 million objects across the whole of the collection, and about 1 million of them are at the Discovery Centre. We'll hear a bit more about that in a bit. But just to say, that big chunk of brickwork on the right, that's the object-based store. Like, people have windows on the left-hand side of that picture, and the objects don't, because we don't want light getting anywhere near any of them. Anyway, we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute with skills. The next one over is the art gallery. It's a proper art gallery, as you'd think. When the city built the art gallery, it didn't have any money to put any art in it by the time it had built the building. So it only collected contemporary art. It's just the contemporary art got old. So we still do contemporary art shows. We've had like the British Art Show and things like that over the years. So we've got some older stuff that's Victorian, but it was contemporary at the time. And now we do contemporary art shows. Moving down to the next row, we've got Temple Newsome House. It's a massive Tudor manor house, huge. The thing I really like about Temple Newsome is, I'm guessing sitting there in schools or at home, wherever you are, you might not like your parents' decorating tastes. And if you had a house, yours would be decorated totally differently. The same with places like Temple Newsome. Basically, every generation said, I don't like that decorating taste. I'm going to close the door on that and redecorate this bit. So you can walk backwards and forwards through style through Temple Newsome. Then we've got a ruined medieval monastery, which is Kirkstall Abbey. It's the most complete Cistercian monastery in the country. And the road, can you see the big doorway in the abbey? The main road into Leeds used to go straight through the middle of the abbey. It doesn't now, but it did in the past. Then we've got Lotherton Hall. That's a much cuter, smaller country house. It's home to the Gascoigne family, who were related to Florence Nightingale. So we have Florence Nightingale's writing desk, and she used to come on holiday there. And actually, it was like nursing owls around Lotherton that made her interested in nursing in the first place. Then jumping down, we've got a couple of interior shots rather than exterior ones. We've got Abbey House Museum, which is a social history museum where you can see the family walking through the street. It's got a Victorian street set and lots of toys and games. And then we've got Armley Mills, or Leeds Industrial Museum, which was the biggest woolen mill in the world at one point. We say that for about 2 weeks before the next biggest one was built. But, you know, we can still claim the title of in the world for that short amount of time. Anyway, so those are our 8 venues, 1.3 million objects in them. We have about 1 million visitors across those locations. So we are tourist attractions, we are businesses as well as being museums. But we have a focus on what we do with people and how we care about people, place and environment. And that runs through the kind of skill set that we look for when we're looking for people to recruit into our jobs. So in terms of our workforce, We have 189 full-time equivalent, is what FTE stands for, posts, and we have 123 members of staff. That means we've got some part-time posts and some people job share and things like that. So there's 189 posts and 123 members of staff. It's split across a number of different branches, as you'd expect. I thought I wouldn't put in a really boring organisational tree. I'd just talk you through it. So I'm guessing when you think about museums, you probably think about the collections that we hold, the objects, the artworks, and that they're looked after by curators. Yeah. So they sit within our collections team, and we have 12 subject specialist curators. So they're kind of curators who you think of when you think of curators in a museum. There's an archaeology curator and a natural science curator and industrial history and fine art and costume and textiles. So they've come up through a route where they've often done a degree or further study into their area of expertise. And then they've decided to go into museums and they use that expertise and they continue to do research. Some of them hold further qualifications, MAs, PhDs, but not all of them. But also within our collections team are our community curators, and they've come up from very different routes. So they tend to be drawn from our communities, from our community programmes. So they've got brilliant lived experience of living and working in Leeds, and they work on our programmes that work again with those communities. So they might be out with the Irish community at one of the celebrations in the evening and collecting oral histories about that kind of stuff. Now, our subject curators will do that as well, but not to the same degree as our community curators, who might be working with people who are more vulnerable or have longer term, maybe health needs, potentially. There's also 2 youth engagement officers who sit within the collections team, and they work with 14 to 24-year-olds specifically on kind of building skills, building confidence, mental health work. The reason lots of museums will put these kind of roles in with the learning team, which is what I manage, but actually with us, it's also about contemporary collecting. So it's about making our collections representational and represent the communities that we have within the city. And our youth engagement officers share a stronger community of practice with our community curators than they possibly do with some of the learning stuff that we do. So that's why they sit within those places. But different organisations put them in different places depending on what they want out of those posts. Learning, that's my team, which I manage. There's 13 of us. There is a learning and access officer basically per site across those 8 sites. Some of them have come from teaching, some of them have come straight into museums, some of them have come from industry. We'll unpick that a bit more in a little bit more depth in a minute. And we've got some digital learning officers and things like that. Some of them are on special projects. We then got marketing and audience development, which is what you think of when you think of marketing. It's both print stuff, it's digital kind of media, it's our social media team, that kind of thing. But now there's much more of an emphasis on the commerciality of what we do in terms of making income. So actually, it's not just, woohoo, we're here, come and have a visit. It's actually, woohoo, we're here, please donate to us, please have a visit. Would you like to do this event? Would you like to come to this? But it's how we balance that with that engagement and the civicness that I mentioned at the start. And that's a really interesting balance for our marketing team to be able to do. Interestingly, that term audience development has come up through the sector much more over the past kind of 10, 15 years. But in essence, it's marketing in its biggest, broadest sense that's often underpinned by research into audiences. Then there's our operations and enterprise team. So this is the front of house teams that you see when you walk into a museum and who you meet at the doors. They might be the people on the shops, they might be the people in our cafes, they might be the people running way down the line for you guys, but a wedding. And then because we're part of Leeds City Council, all our finance and HR and kind of the admin roles that sit underneath to help us are part of the wider Leeds City Council structures. But if you're in a national museum or if you're in a charity in a local museum or a small museum, an independent, those will all be in-house as well or bought in services from anywhere else. So actually, you don't necessarily need to be a curator in a museum because we have all of these kind of things. So actually, if you're thinking about accountancy, museums need accountants, trust me, they definitely do at the moment. So you can be an accountant within arts and culture, for instance. You can be an HR person within arts and culture. So that's the kind of roles we have. what the skills you need to do those. Across all of those kind of roles that I've very briefly mentioned, you'll need this set of skills. So what we look for, and it's phrased differently in different job descriptions, but we're looking for good communication skills, team working, time management and flexible working. And I say flexible working because we are tourist attractions, which means we operate 6 or 7 days a week, which means there is an element of weekend working. There is an element of evening working if we're having evening events. So for instance, City Museum had a big Miffy exhibition earlier this year. It was all about the rabbit. And we did lots of late night openings that were specifically targeted at adults. This isn't for your toddlers. This was definitely for adults. And there were DJs and we were playing Miffy games and that kind of thing. But actually, we need staff to keep the doors open to make sure it's safe for the public to come in to do the things. So there is an element of flexible working within that. Good computer skills. I mean, I think the fact that you're on this, listening to this and watching this probably means that you're probably more computer literate than I am. So you're all sorted with that. But in terms of, we don't just use it for social media and promotion. As a manager within a museum, we have an HR system. I have to navigate a recruitment system, something for appraisals, something for this, that, and the other. The finance system is all digital. So having a good computer literacy is really important for that. And then good literacy and numeracy skills. There are different ways and there are different jobs within this that you wouldn't necessarily need all of those, but most of them are useful. However, what we look for when we are recruiting people, I have a line in our learning officer job descriptions that says, really kind of, it says, to paraphrase it, I really want to work for Leeds Museums and Galleries. And I want people to show me that passion that they want to work within arts and culture and be authentically you when I read an application. So all the skill sets are great, but you've also got to convey that idea of, I love doing this and I want to do this. And to be honest, arts and culture is slightly a passion thing. It's not necessarily the best paid industry in the world. To give you a sense of that kind of thing, my learning officers are on a reasonable salary. They're on about £37,000 starting salary, but that doesn't go up that much higher. It goes to about 39 and they hit the top of the band, but that's below or around the same as a teacher's starting salary. Whereas a teacher will be able to progress further. My learning officers are stuck within that band unless they decide to move on and get another job, which is perfectly possible. But we are compared to other industries, we're not that well paid. So you do have to kind of love what you're doing. So I thought I'd give you a few real concrete examples of what this kind of thing means. So this is the Discovery Centre. It's our open access store. You saw a picture of the outside of it earlier. And these are some of representational of some of the roles that we do at Discovery. So on the top left, you've got a picture of the inside of the Discovery Centre. This is, as I say, our open access store. This is how we store objects. It's a curated display. Can you see that big open space on the right-hand side of the picture? Every group that comes in the Discovery Centre comes in the store. So we have school groups, we have early years groups, we have all sorts of people coming in. We've done yoga and filmed music videos in there as well, in the spaces that we've got. It was designed to be open to the public. But as a building, it needs managing in and of itself. So we have what we call keepers, which is a shorthand version of the original title, which was the Keeper of the Keys. Isn't that such a wonderful job? Sounds so Dungeons and Dragons, doesn't it? But we shortened it to Keeper, and essentially it means site manager. At the moment, because we've got a vacant post, as well as my day job, I am also keeper of the Discovery Centre, which means I have to understand not just a bit about the objects that are on the shelves, but also, can you see at the top of the picture, you've got all of that silver trunking and things. That's our air handling system. So that keeps all the objects cool and keeps them down to kind of a relative humidity of a certain kind of level, that kind of thing. I also have to know where the fire alarms are and things like that. I'm just going to pull up my notes. There we go, and move you around a little bit. I've got support with that, and that's a lady called Gemma, who's our site development officer. And in terms of the skill set of a keeper and a site development officer, they need to be really, really organised and calm in a crisis. So I came in the other day and there was a leak in a place that we were not expecting in the building, a leak we've never had before. So then I have to go, oh, right, okay, what's the possible damage that could do to any objects below it? How do we fix that? How do I talk to my council colleagues about getting that done? If me or Gemma panicked in that situation, it's not going to be good. So being really calm in a crisis really helps. There's also an element of staff management that comes with that, because those keepers and those site development officers manage our front of house teams. And then there's visitor management within the space. So all of these are kind of adding up to those how you do the job. Because yes, we take groups in the space, but actually we also need to am I still sharing it in terms of the big screen, or have I dropped out of that one? In terms of how we manage visitor flow around it. So then moving along to the next image over, we've got a picture of our website, which is our audience development team. As I say, they manage our website and our social media and things like that. They need to be really fleet of foot and quick to respond to things.
Kate.
Oh, yeah, Sam.
I think we might be sharing the wrong.
Okay, sorry. There we go.
No, don't worry at all. We've got time. Don't worry.
There we go.
Perfect. Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, I was just trying to bring up my notes. There we go. So I'm moving you around. There we go. So in terms of our audience development team, they need to be fleet of foot and they need to be really calm, again, in a crisis. So as you'll have probably seen on social media, things can blow up quite quickly and they need to be able to respond to that. We do lots of programs that support lots of different people and lots of different communities, but sometimes we can face a backlash with that, and we need to know where our red lines are as a service and what we stand behind. So we do lots of trans support programs, and we did face a little bit of a backlash through transphobia for that, but our social media team handled it absolutely brilliantly. And it's things like turning off comments and things like that, but being able to say, this is what we do, this is what we believe in, this is why we're standing here. You may disagree with us, but actually this is what we believe. Okay. Moving down onto the bottom row, you've got our conservation studio is also at Discovery Centre. So we have a conservator on staff. She has to be incredibly patient in terms of her skill set. Is Emma. She fixes lots of things for us. Obviously, sometimes curators drop things, sometimes learning people and other staff drop things. The worst thing I've ever dropped was a Victorian glass rolling pin. It just rolled off the table and smithereens. But Emma has managed to stick it back together, bless her. She does a fantastic job, but she does need an awful lot of patience to be able to do that. And again, being highly organised to look after all those objects across all 8 sites. Moving along, we've got the learning team. That's Emily, who was the learning officer at Discovery Centre for a while. And she's there with a home education group looking at some whale bones. In terms of the learning team, we are generally people. Okay, so we are generally the chatty, friendly face of what we do in terms of the programs, and we work with early years all the way through to adults. Again, there's an element of thinking on your feet and being fleet of foot, because we have to work with the public, and the public will bring anything to you that you like. And then we've got some lovely pictures of Miffy, because our commercial store is also at the Discovery Centre, because of it being a bit like Museums HQ, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So that's one of the sites. Leeds Art Gallery is an open site to the public. So whereas Discovery Centre, you have to book to go, we take booked groups, things like that. Leeds Art Gallery, you can just wander on in and have a look at some art. However, the 2 bits that I thought I'd talk about now were the cafe and our retail offer. Apologies for that picture being a bit blurry. So our cafe here is the Tiled Hall Cafe. In terms of our hospitality offer, it's really important for our income generation. So our cafe managers have to know about profit and loss and have that real sense of business acumen, alongside Rebecca, who's our retail manager, who's just on the right there. She has to know what's going to sell and be able to spot trends. So she is already stocking and planning for Christmas 2026. She's done Christmas 2025 last year. So Christmas 2026 is what she's looking at in terms of trends for now. And then I just thought I'd touch really quickly on something else that's digital. We run mylearning.org, which is a national teaching resource website. There's a bit on jobs on there, so you can find it if you like. But actually, it's about the research that goes into it and the copyright things that go into it. So I have 2 digital learning officers who do digital programs across the service, but also manage this website. So they need to know about the statistics and the analytics and how you actually run a website. But in terms of the content that we put on, we are looking at those hidden or overlooked histories, which means doing a lot of research on the collections to be able to do that. We also have partner content on there from lots of other museums. So it's about fact checking that through a series of different people, including teachers. And then we take a very strong line on representation and on bias, and we'd admit where there isn't the evidence for one thing or another. So that again, we can cause some friction along some of the ways, but they're very good at dealing with that. And I think that's a rattle stop through everything else. There's my details in case anyone wants to have a question. There's a follow-up, but for now I'll stop the share in case there's